Hey, Parental CEO fam. So today we have a good friend, Andrew, on the live interview, who's going to be sharing some top tips with us. So welcome to the interview, Andrew. The Parental CEO was created to help parents become successful, both in business and in parenting. We always want to add value to our community by sharing success stories and advice on how to kind of manage the best of both worlds. So I'd love for you to kind of just give us a bit of an introduction, Andrew. Who are you? What do you do? And go from there.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jamie. Thanks for inviting me on. Thanks, Taya. I'm a chartered accountant by trade. You know a bit about that, Jamie.
Yes.
And I qualified many moons ago. I qualified at a medium-sized firm. I then went on to work at Morgan Stanley as a financial controller for a few years. And after that, I started my own accountancy firm with my first business partner and did that for a good number of years and really enjoyed that and learned the basics of being in business. And as you know, when you speak to lots of business owners and deal with lots of business owners, you really do get a sort of strength and a depth of knowledge that potentially a lot of other people don't get. And that carried on. I then moved to another firm and grew further at that firm. And about 4 years ago, I moved over to the dark side, and I started as a finance director of a company. So we have 400 staff, 40 million pounds turnover, 35 to 40 million pounds turnover, and I am transitioning away from that in 2 days' time.
Exciting.
Wow.
Amazing stuff. So with the chartered accountant, so obviously my background is a chartered accountant, so I'm going to love this conversation. Talking finance, because I think you're right when we're talking about getting the insight, and Taya also gets this insight as a bookkeeper into the nooks and crannies of businesses, like, you know, the transactional stuff, the day-to-day stuff that's happening with business owners. And I think people don't tend to appreciate what we do as accountants. So one of the things, you know, the title of the podcast is about growing your personal wealth. Like, how do you think as a chartered accountant, and based on your experience, what's one of the best ways of growing your personal wealth?
Well, look, I think as an accountant, the accountancy world is changing. You know, years ago, it used to be very compliance driven. And we used to spend a lot of time putting sets of accounts together. Nowadays, you spend a lot more time talking to your clients and really trying to understand their business. And look, if you're going to, as a business owner, if you're going to prosper personally, the primary amount of money is coming from your business. So you have to start with your business to be personally almost financially independent. Your business has to be successful. And you've got to start with the basics. You know, it really is. I mean, there's a book by Mike, always struggle with his second name, Profit First.
Mike Michalowicz.
Michalowicz, yes, and always struggle with pronouncing that. And actually, that to me makes complete sense. And as an accountant, we do look at turnover minus expenses equals profit. But as a finance director, I went through the door saying this isn't about turnover. Actually, what you've got to do is start with the basics and do those little mundane, boring things that businesses that no one really wants to do. And let's be honest, anyone that's not financial doesn't really want to do it. But if you can do those consistently, you can be successful. So in the business that I'm working in, I began with overheads and looked at the easy wins. We then moved on to gross profit, which is the cost of sales, and said, well, this is what we're earning on these jobs. Let's take two clients as an example. Same job for two different clients. Why are we earning different gross profit margins on two clients? Because no two clients are exactly the same. But if the service is the same, you've got to understand that, and you've got to work and understand it and play it to your advantage. Because in industry, in a service-based industry especially, every percent counts nowadays. You know, it is a tough life to be a business owner, and it's a tough life, especially if you've got staff that you need to look after and they've got families. You know, you have a great responsibility. But primarily your responsibility is to your clients.
Yeah.
And so sales is the wrong end of the stick, really. You don't, you know, your pricing, as you know, Jamie, you need to understand the other areas to get your pricing right. You don't start with your pricing and then deal with the other stuff afterwards.
But I think a lot of businesses do it in reverse. I've got to admit, because that's how I did it. You know, starting my first accountancy practice, I don't know about Taya, but I started with pricing, and I was like, whoa, like looking around for my calculator, trying to look like I knew what I was doing when I was pricing a client. This was face to face. It, you know, I just came out with a number, and I had to learn the skill sets required to actually, like you say, break it down and start with the end in mind. So actually start with your profit, add in your overheads, look at your cost of sales. When we're talking about cost of sales, Andrew, do you want to expand on that a bit more, just so any of our financial, because it is a bit of financial jargon, isn't it?
Sure. So your cost of sales can be, if you're a service-based industry, your cost of sales are primarily your staff that are actually physically doing the work, not the staff that are in the office doing, let's be honest, what we do, which is accounts. We are not a cost of sale. We are an overhead quite often. Unless you're an accountancy firm, then you're a cost of sale. But ultimately, if you are providing a service, it's the people that are providing that service and all costs that are related to that service. So that would include travel, that would include your vans, your in the business that I'm in, it would include things like ladders and drills. Those are cost of sales, effectively. But in a product-based business, it's just the cost of actually providing that one or that amount of products that you're selling. And if you can control that and get that within a range, then you're in a much better position to price accordingly. What a lot of people do is they start with, well, this is the industry I'm in. What are other people charging? Oh, I've got to charge about that. And look, we've all done it. I've done it as well. And I still do it at times. You know, this is the thing. I think you kind of, but you have to understand your value. And if you can provide your clients with value, and really is that return on investment. If they're getting a return on your value, that on your time, then that's okay. Working for an hourly wage is not a particularly enlightening or inspiring life, is it?
No.
That's such a good point, because I just started another company with a girlfriend. It's a service-based business. And that was the biggest point was we were like, price. What do we charge? What is everyone else doing? Like, how do we figure out, what do we want to like take home? How do we figure out what this price is? But in hindsight, if we had figured out what's our value, what is our proposition, what is our outcome that we're selling, and come at it from the back end, and what are the things that we can control in that, then you can kind of get to that end piece with a little more well-rounded impression.
And quite often it's, what can I offer that potentially other people in this industry are not offering or cannot offer, to pretty much sweeten the deal for the client. You know, a lot of people talk about the relationships that you have with your clients, and it's really important to build a decent relationship. I get that. I'm not against that at all. But equally, the client still needs to feel the value. They still need to see what you're providing and say, if I can get it down the road, you'll hear it, but you probably both heard it. Bookkeeping's a really good example, and tax returns are a good example. You can get the man down the road to do a tax return for a couple of £100. You can get a bookkeeper for, in the UK, Taya, you can get a bookkeeper for, let's say, 10, 12, £15 an hour. If you want to charge more than that, what else are you giving? What else are you doing? And how are you separating yourself from the gang? And that's not an easy question to answer. I think you learn that over time.
Yeah, and there's no real value in charging by the hour, is there really? When you think about it, because if the value was in charging by the hour, then you'd pay someone just to sit with you for an hour, wouldn't you? If that makes sense. Like what you're paying for is more the outcome, and if you get the desired outcome, you're prepared to pay more money. So if the desired outcome is in the accountancy world for peace of mind, then you're paying so that you can sleep at night, not worrying about the IRS or HMRC coming knocking on your door. saying, come on, where's all my tax money? You know, and you're paying for that desired result. And if your accountant isn't delivering that result, then obviously that's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? But
it works both ways as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You've not only got to work for the client, but you've got to make your internal systems work as well. And your staff have to understand what the vision for the business is. They have to buy into the values of the business. And if you're a one-man band, again, that's quite hard, because you know what your vision is, you know what your values are, but you automatically fall into that time for money scenario.
But talking about the cost of sales as well, though, and I think this is definitely topical for small business owners, is as a one-man band or one-woman band or solopreneur, as they're called, or parentpreneur, you know, if you've got both parents working in the business, like you could be a cost of sale, an administrative cost, and you want to get paid a return on your investment. So as an investor, like a dividend. So there's like three ways that you're kind of should be getting a return from your business, and you should be factoring that in, because if you're not, then how are you going to replace yourself?
And if you think about the way lots of businesses start, is they start because, let's say you're annoyed at your boss, you're thinking, I can do this, I'm just going to do this myself, and actually I'm going to do fine. But when you actually open your doors and say, right, I've got to find some clients, and you find some clients, you realize you've got to be the HR person. If you're bringing staff on, you've got to do all of the accountancy, all of the compliance, all of the stuff that is not fee generating. And that time can really, really add up depending on which industry you're in.
Yeah.
You know, the marketing, the selling, all of that stuff. And then you've got to do the work on top of that. Yeah. And I always say to people, I think you need to sit down and work out your hourly wage, because if you do, all of a sudden you'll find lots of business owners that are saying, well, I'm earning half of what I was earning because I'm doing 8, 15, 16-hour days.
Yeah. I can relate to that one. Working probably 70, 80-hour weeks, and I was probably earning an average of between maybe £8 to £10 an hour when I first started. And it was only because I did those numbers. It was like electric shock treatment for me, because I was like, holy crap, like this is just not sustainable. I may as well go and get a job, because I'll get double that, if not triple that from working in another accountancy practice, and I don't have to deal with half of the stuff that I have to deal with. And that was mainly all because I got my pricing wrong.
So a lot of people do not start a business with the end goal in mind. They just start a business, which is where I was going with the initial point. Yeah. They start a business because they think, I can do this, and I'm going to be cheaper than the company that I'm with at the moment. I'm going to therefore earn more money. And it very rarely ends up being that way. So I think you need to have a plan when you start on not really your exit route, but to a certain extent, you do need to think about what's the long-term goal here, and how am I going to exit? Because if you're building a business to sell it, that's different to having a lifestyle business.
Amen.
And if it's a lifestyle business, you've got to have a life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. But this is quite an interesting, because I love this topic. But with the pricing, and this is where I see so many people get pricing wrong, is they don't factor in like their own time into that pricing model. So for example, they might take so they take a customers come in, they're asking for a set of accounts. They might look at how long that's going to take to actually do the work, but then they're not taking into account, you know, how many hours do you want to work as a business owner? They're not taking into account how many hours have you got to do for marketing, how many hours have you got to do for sales, how many hours have you got to do for administration, all of those other things. And I think it's a big mistake that I see a lot of small business owners making, and just correcting those simple mistakes can double profits quite instantly, almost instantly. It's absolutely amazing. So trying to stick to the theme, because I don't want to get off on a tangent, because I love this subject. So have you got any like simple steps for like a small business owner to think about how to grow their personal wealth using their business?
Okay, I think, as I said, to a certain extent, what you've got to do is really understand your margins of your jobs. Reduce your overhead expenses, so get the best margin you can on the work, but still providing a quality service or a quality product. That's really imperative to do. Reduce your costs as much as you possibly can, and make sure they're split over 12 months so they're consistent. You're not getting these big hikes and drops, because we've all been in industries where it's feast or famine. That is not a nice way to live. So no. Absolutely split your costs over 12 months, ideally. Control your gross profit, and then you'll be left with net profit. And when you've got that net profit, ideally what you want to do is remove it, and you take it personally, as much of it as possible. Now, for me, an important part of business is the development of the business. So I always like to have a self-development bank account, which is, it's almost like, so if we're talking about, Jamie, you know about the Tiers of Freedom, Jason Greystone's program. He has a self-development 10% buffer for bank account for personal self-development. I think there should be a business self-development buffer as well, or bank account as well, because things are going to come out of the blue. But you've also got to plan. If you're going to build the business, you need to have some money, and you don't just instantly get it. And ideally, borrowing it is also not the most efficient route, because you're going to have to pay to borrow it. Sometimes you do have to do so, but ideally you don't.
Well, it's interesting you talk about borrowing, because I think there's a lot of people in the UK that have taken that C-bills loan or BBLS.
So there's a C-bills loan, and there's also a bounce back loan. Yes,
that's the one. And it's interesting, because I think a lot of people have taken that thinking it's almost like free money. And I do know somebody that has gone out and taken that loan and went and bought a car, which is I don't want to swear. But when I had a conversation with him, I was like, well, why would you do something like that? So if somebody was to go down that loan route, what would you recommend to them?
Okay, well, I think if you're starting out and you're taking a loan and it's quite a lot of money, you really want to, again, control the amount of the repayment. So put it over a period of time that you can comfortably repay it, but you've got to be mindful of the interest that's on that loan, because the longer you have that loan, the longer you're paying the interest, and the interest is just money out of your bank account. So it's getting that. And again, this is where you need to understand your figures, because if you don't, it's pretty much finger in the air, isn't it? Well, I feel like I want it over 3 years. Actually, I'm going to have it over 2 years. I can't afford 1 year, so I'm going to put it over 4 years. You have those conversations with clients and you say, well, what can you physically afford? And again, that comes back to, if you're starting out, how much do you want to take out of the business? Quite often when you start up, I did it, and I'm sure other people have done it, you agree with yourself and you reconcile the fact that you're not going to be able to take out as much as you want out of the business. If you've got a side hustle on the side of a job at present, then this is what happens with lots of people. They start a sort of trading as such on the side of an existing job, hopefully not in competition with your employer, because that's a little bit dangerous. But if you are doing that, the main aim is to really save and build up a cash buffer in the business. I've always said that you need to have 3 months to 6 months in a cash buffer to cover your expenses, and I include wages in that. Now, that's not easy, and less than probably 3% of businesses ever do that. But if you look at the strongest businesses in the world, they have a strong balance sheet, and they have cash sat in the bank account for exactly this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think, is it Microsoft have, I think, almost 12 months worth of cash. So to everyone that's listening, to kind of simplify it, is they've got that amount of cash in the bank, or that much money in the bank physically, that they can continue to trade with zero income for 12 months. And that's continuing to pay all their staff, pay all their liabilities, pay everything for 12 months. So they're pretty safe.
Sorry, Jamie. Sorry.
Yeah, carry on.
That does two things. Not only does if you think worst case scenario, think of a repeat of COVID. That happens, and the government is not going to bail us out. You're going to have to cover not just your money as a business owner, but your staff as well, if you want to hold on to them. And you do want to hold on to them, ideally. So think of worst case scenario. But it's the second thing, that if that doesn't happen, it's the mindset that you have, which is, I've got that money sat in the bank account, and it's all about mindset. And it gives you confidence to then take your time with business decisions, and not say, I need to go to the bank to borrow money, or I can't actually take that opportunity because I don't have the funds to even explore it.
Yeah.
Very true.
It is, yeah. I think as well, with regards to a loan, some people might think it's a bit silly to actually leave the majority of that money. Obviously, if you're taking a loan, you've got to have a plan for what you're going to need for the business, if that makes sense. So you need some kind of financial plan. So if you're going to borrow £50,000, what's going to happen with that £50,000? And some people might think it's counterintuitive, but actually leaving a chunk of that money in your bank account can just switch things in your mind, because you'll be like, well, hang on a second, I can pay myself for 12 months, I can pay all my staff for 12 months, and I can pay all the repayments for 12 months. If I can physically do that with this loan, that effectively gives me 12 months to either generate additional revenue income streams for my business, generate more sales, spend more time on sales, and move the needle, basically.
You make a really good point, which is, are you using it to grow, or are you using it for working capital? And working capital is your day-to-day expenses. If you're going to bring a loan through the door, ideally, you don't really want to be spending it on your working capital. That would almost be your last port of call. But if it has to happen, and that's what you need to do to generate more work, existing work, then fine, that's okay. But the real power behind it would be to have the choice to be using it for a new income stream, a new venture as such.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So you would suggest to people that are trying to kind of get that net profit number looking a little more healthy, you would suggest working from the bottom up on the P&L, like working from the bottom up, and then also keeping in mind things like, how are you going to grow, having a rainy day fund, those kinds of things. Once you have got your P&L under control, putting those things in place.
So if we were to take a step by step, yeah, absolutely. You've said it, but work from the bottom up. So work from your overheads at the bottom, then work in your gross profit, which is your cost of sales, then work on your sales, and be specific about your sales and your contracts and your clients. And then what that will do is all of that will feed back down to the very bottom figure, which is your net profit.
Yeah.
Ideally, I would set up 3 bank accounts. So you would have your working capital bank account, which is where you spend your expenses go from. You would have your savings account, which is effectively your cash buffer. You want to build that cash buffer over time, slowly, but build it. Ideally, what happens with a cash buffer is it's almost like a loan. It's like a snowball effect. Once you start to save and you start to feel a bit more comfortable and you feel a bit better about it, you'll want to save more. And actually, you might find that you work a bit harder because of it. So, or a bit more hours. And so that's the second bank account. And then the last bank account is for your self-development, effectively. Mm. Some people like to have a fourth, which is a tax account. I'm not mad about that, to be honest. That's your choice, but I prefer to have the self-development account. But the place to start is to build your cash buffer before you actually even mess about with the self-development account. And then when you're there and you're comfortable and you've got your 3 to 6 months cash buffer, don't pay any more into that account. That money can then go into a profit account, which will be your fourth bank account that you can open, and that's for you as the business owner.
Yeah. So
it's kind of like a hybrid of Dave Ramsey's 7 steps and Mike Michalowicz's Profit First.
Yeah, I've been reading. There's nothing new there. It's just a little bit of a hybrid. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And then you have to play with the percentages, you see, and that's where really my podcast, which is the One Life Business Podcast, I talk about business owners understanding their finances and how important it is. Because if you delegate that responsibility, you're never really going to have a grasp of exactly what you need to do and when you need to do it. You need to get confidence, and again, it all feeds into your mindset. It's not just about physical money and what's there. It's about your mindset and business, which is you want to grow, you want to prosper, and then you want it to feed into your life so that you lead a inspired and a fulfilled life, and you get time to actually spend with your kids.
Exactly, yeah. And I think the cash buffer, as I've been introduced to this by the same guy, Jason Greystone, who will be doing a live with us in a couple of weeks. So quite excited about that. But I think from when we're talking about a mindset shift, the mindset shift it had for me was it kind of went like red alert, really, really stressed out, worried about money all the time, not being able to sleep at night, to just having, it started off with 1 month buffer. Then I got to 2 months. Then I got to 4 months. Then it started compounding, and then I got to 12 months. And every time that cash buffer started to grow, I just started to relax more and more and more. And for me, I did become a better dad because of it. I did become a better husband because of it. And it sounds so simple, but it was for me.
But again, I'll hark back to the fact that it's the boring, mundane, day-to-day, but consistent. There is nothing that, none of this is, you're not going to get a pill that can solve your problems overnight. You just have to work on it over time and do those things consistently, and you will start to feel better about it. And can you imagine how good you're going to feel when your business has got 3 to 6 months to 12 months, if you feel that way, and you personally have got the same?
Yeah.
You're going to be in such a powerful position that you can go, do you know what? Bring on the world. I'll take the challenge.
Totally. You feel like Superman.
Yeah. I think as well, linking it back to the sales side of things as well, is I'm not saying like the buffer's the magic pill to this, but it does help again from the mindset shift. But when you've got that cash buffer, you're not chasing every single job. So you can be more selective in the work that you take, because you can look at a job and you can say, and this, when you've got no money in the bank account, it's easy for me to say, yeah, don't take that job because it's not worth that much profit to you. But when you're in red alert mode, you'll take anything. And that's kind of what happened to me when I first started. I don't know about you two, but
yes. I don't know if we have very many of our original clients still.
No, but I mean, one of my pricing success stories was actually one of my first clients, and it was £100 a month. Then this is for the exact same work, no change in work. Within a year, I'd got them up to £250 a month. So it's a significant increase in their price, but I was able to address the value proposition better. I was able to have that conversation, but I felt comfortable having that because I had cash in the bank. I had that cash in. I wasn't worried about winning that job. It didn't matter if they cancelled their contract at £100 a month. When you're turning over multiple six figures, it's neither here nor there. And I'm not saying like you should dismiss clients because that's horrible. But you have to make those ethical business decisions. And I'm just saying, again, that buffer really, really helped me with that.
Yeah, and as we've always said, cash is king in business. You know, it is for your working capital, for your mindset, for everything to do with business. Cash is absolutely king. You must have it.
And I think it's when we're talking about personal wealth as well. So we've got the business vehicle. The business vehicle is working. The business vehicle is providing us with personal income, and obviously as that personal income starts to grow, because we optimize those overheads. So we reduce them. Basically, we reduce them. We start to increase our prices as well. So we start to see that profit go from, I don't know, 15 grand to 30 grand to 45 grand. You know, it just starts growing. When we're growing our personal wealth, Andrew, do you recommend that people take a similar approach to their personal finances?
I think take exactly the same approach. Absolutely. Yeah. It is just there's no point in doing something different for your business than you personally. But let's be honest, the business of you is you. So you've got to treat your personal finances in exactly the same way as you treat your business, which is you've got to self-develop. You really do want to be spending your time and money on learning, building, growing personally, as well as sort of business-wise. I think a cash buffer is really important for a family. You know, that anything can happen. I'm diabetic, so I've got type 1 diabetes, and what concerns me is I've got a chronic illness. I work really hard to stay healthy, but what happens if I can't work? And I feel a lot better about the fact I have a cash buffer in place and I have passive income coming through the door as well. And I've only built that over time. I didn't get that at 20 years old. I've built that over time. The boring, the mundane, yes, controlling your costs. Again, start with the basics. Start with looking at your costs. Download 12 months bank statements, analyze what you're spending, and go, okay, actually, I can do better here and I can do better there. And you'll be surprised at what you can do. And it doesn't mean that you have to be you have to cut everything off and say, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. I don't particularly believe in that, but you certainly have to understand it and be mindful of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, to live an inspired life, you know, people want to aspire to achieve these things, maybe drive a Tesla one day, maybe have that nice house, you know, and having those dreams is fantastic. But I agree with you wholeheartedly when you're looking at your own overheads. So I did this task more than 2 years ago. I mean, to be honest with you, I was doing it regularly anyway as an accountant. But when you actually just sit down, so I sat down with Laura, my wife, we went through the overheads and we started just saying, well, why are we paying this we're paying for Virgin TV, so we're paying for like the top package. And I was like, why are we paying for that? Like, we only use the internet, so why are we paying for like the phone and the TV when we don't watch it? All we use it for is the internet for the kids watching YouTube, and then for me doing live streaming. But you know, that one saving alone was £50 a month. That's £600 a year. That £600 went straight into that cash buffer. I didn't go and replace that with something else and go and get more finance on my car or go and move house because I've got an extra 50 quid I can spend on my mortgage.
Yeah. So I drive to the office and we have lots of people at the office with their cars, and my car is the oldest in the car park, but it's good. It does the job. It's 12 years old. It's a VW Passat. It's boring as hell. It's mundane as hell, but I own it. It doesn't cost me anything, and it's solid, and it gets me from A to B. So I'd love a really nice car, but what's the point? What's the point at present? And what I see a lot of people doing is trying to keep up with the Joneses. I don't like the Joneses. I'm going to stay away from them, to be honest.
Yeah,
I want to keep up with myself.
Yes,
but also,
which isn't always the easiest thing to do.
It's not, but we all live by our means, don't we, to a certain extent? And this is the problem. When you start to increase, and business owners that are listening to this will do this as well, and you've got to be really careful, because when your business starts to become more and more successful and you earn more and more, all of a sudden your expenses will go up because you live by your means. It's natural to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you've got a system and you follow the system, you're going to be okay at the end of it. If you don't have a system and you're not following the system, you're going to struggle, you know. Well,
it's funny how even sometimes a lot of people, you know, they do a lot of work on what's the vision, what's the mission, what are the core values, what's the budget, are my finances under control in the business, but they don't necessarily do the same thing for their life. And they totally could and probably should do those things to guide their decisions in life as well.
But maybe that's because they're sitting there working so hard that they think I deserve everything that I've earned, and I'm going to spend it the way I want to spend it. And I've heard that a lot until they can't afford something, or the business goes wrong. They've got no savings, nothing. No one's going to bail them out but themselves. And And those are difficult conversations, because you have to work with your clients, as Jamie says, and try and not educate them, but say to them, look, you've got to be planning for the future. I'm not an IFA, I'm an accountant, but the reality is I've seen it enough that business owners earning huge amounts of money owe more money. They're in debt, and you're thinking that's crazy, and they're stressed because of it. It harps back to the mindset. They're stressed, and they're thinking, I've got to work harder. I've got to work harder, longer, to earn more money, because I've got to pay for the horse and the car and the holidays.
Yeah, it is. And you could be earning £1,000 a month, and if your outgoings are £500 a month, you're going to be less stressed than somebody earning £10,000 a month who's spending out £10,000 a month.
Yeah, but equally, don't forget, we live in a world at the moment that's so convenience driven. People are prepared to pay for convenience, and it's all very, very, I want it now. Very few people have the sort of wherewithal to say, you know what, this is going to take time to do. And this is why this stuff isn't easy for people, because everything in the world tells us, if you want it, go get it. Just go get it. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. But sometimes it's not fine.
Yeah, I think that's one of my big worries as a parent, with the kids growing up with this access to technology and, the ability. Tobias was buying stuff on Amazon, and we had to set a password up, and that was at the age of 4. And it's literally that easy to buy stuff. And, always the only reason we noticed it again was because I monitor our expenses. But Lauren had seen it and just seen Amazon. She'd not really thought anything about it. I checked it and I was like, well, we've got this Amazon $7.99. What's that for? And I think it was Tobias paying for YouTube Kids or something. I don't know, some subscription to something. But I think it's just too easy, and I'm really worried that almost like my kids will be lazy. Does that make sense? Like really, really worried. It's concerning, and I guess hopefully I'm not the only person that's worried about that. But I think as well, from a generational side of things, I noticed when I was employing younger people, there was almost like this expectation to be a partner in your firm within about 2 weeks. They're like, why am I not a partner in the firm already? Well, yeah, no, that's not how it works, mate. Like you do have to earn your stripes, so to speak. You can go and set up your own practice if you want, young 18-year-old, go and set up your own practice if that's what you want to do. And I think it's almost like that expectation, because everything is there. Amazon, click, buy, it's at your door. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
I think if we're talking about business owners specifically, though, most people out there that are running a business or have run a business, whether as a sole trader, as a limited company, or with staff, they all know how hard it is. It's not easy. But I've always said, once you've got that feeling of running a business and realizing actually the food on my table is coming from me and what I do. If I don't do that, there's no food on the table.
Yeah.
You never really lose that. And even if you go and work for other people, you never lose that ability to think and feel like a business owner.
Yes.
And what that is fear. And that's the reality. It's fear. And you've got to offset that fear with risk in business. And again, it comes back to the cash buffer. We're going around in circles, but it comes back to trying to offset that fear and get rid of the fear. And the fear is not being able to afford something, not having any clients coming through the door, not being able to earn any money. That's not particularly nice. So anything you can do to offset against that and make it, as you said, with your personal finances, the stress level, to reduce the stress level is great for a business owner. My God.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think obviously as a parent, you're dealing with the stresses of being a parent, and school runs and everything's like timed. We were speaking about this last week with homeschooling. I've got to get Tobias to school by 9 o'clock. I've then got to pick him up at 3:20. You've got all those stresses and strains, or additional stresses and strains on you as a parent, whilst also having those same stresses and strains as a business owner. And I think I'd be interested in your view. Would you recommend? So there's people that get finances, and then there's people that don't. And would you recommend for people that don't understand their finances that they get help and support with these sorts of things, rather than feeling overwhelmed and sticking their head in the sand?
I think they need to identify the fact that they do not want to do it or cannot do it. There's two different things. There's probably three, because there's the people that do understand it and still don't want to do it. But I think you need to identify where you are in the life cycle of your business, and then determine whether you need help or not. But a trusted advisor is really important. Having someone else, even if it's just an accountability group like this, and you sit around and you talk to other business owners and say, look, this is what I'm experiencing. It's a very lonely place being in business on your own. And if you're not communicating with other people, you can feel very alone, especially when you're working at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. You're thinking, this is crazy.
Yes.
But you've got to do it because there's no one else there.
Yeah.
So yes, the long-term short answer to yes would be I absolutely agree. I think if you need help, you've got to identify the fact that you need help and just try and understand what's going on in your business.
And baby steps too.
Yeah.
If you're going to go read a book or work with someone or have an accountability group, I think a lot of times people are like, I need to do all the things to get this under control. And so it's like, dieting or something. Like you can't just completely change your whole lifestyle. Work at little bits at a time, build the habits that are going to holistically bring it all together at the end of the day.
A diet's a really good analogy, because a diet is a very short-term answer to a problem. And what happens invariably, and what you hear about diets, is everyone just reverts back to norm. So what you actually want is sustainability. You need a lifestyle change, and that lifestyle change has to be in your business and has to be in your mind. And you need to consistently do the mundane, boring crap that, to be honest, you never even thought about before you were a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely.
So if speaking of baby steps, if people do one thing today to help get their business finances under control, or wherever they are, what would you suggest that is?
Very simple. Get an automated live accounting package and get your figures in a live accounting package so that you've got them to hand. Do not wait till 6 months post year end to give your accountant a bag of receipts or an Excel spreadsheet. Start from the start. Even if you're starting a business now, pay your £10-20 a month, get a live accounting package. It will give you some view of the accounts, and you can build from there.
Mm-hmm. So keep that up to date. Be looking at it.
Absolutely.
So you know where you are.
Everyone write that down.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for your time today, Andrew, and sharing with us. We really appreciate your commitment and the value that you've given us today.
I made so many notes.
The Parental CEO has been designed to break the mold. It is a mentality shift, that you choose to kind of allow into yourself. It means kind of putting aside those doubts, those fears, those excuses. And something both Tara and myself firmly believe is that we're stronger together. And that's the whole reason why we've created this community. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Have an amazing day. Thank you, Andrew, for being with us. It's been very, very enjoyable. I could literally talk about this subject all day.
If people wanted to connect with you more or follow what you have to say, where can they find you online?
They can find me so I've got a podcast, One Life Business Podcast. Okay, and you can find that on most of the platforms.
We'll drop it in the link. We'll drop a link in the comments. So we'll do that.
And I'm also on Instagram, and I'm on a couple of places. I'll give you the links. So I'm on LinkedIn as well, but I don't post very often on LinkedIn. But I don't.
Awesome.
Thanks ever so much, Andrew. Take care. See you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.